So this up top here is pretty dry, but if we scratch down here a little bit, then we've got some really nice moisture down in there. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope everybody out there is having a fantastic day. Today in the garden, we need to get the rest of our fall pumpkins planted right here. Our chickens are finally done doing the thing, got the plot nice and clean. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the evolution of this particular no-till plot. We're going to get those fall pumpkins planted. I'm going to show you how we do it a little different in this no-till plot versus our other plots. And then maybe towards the end of the video, we'll wander on over to the muscadine vine and see if we can't find a few little snacks. So late yesterday afternoon, I pulled the girls there off of this plot here. They were in that back corner over there. And I started moving them around, kind of getting them closer to where they'll go next. As you can see here, they did a pretty dang good job getting it cleaned up, kind of terminating that cover crop. We had to help them out a little bit with the lawnmower, but they did a pretty good job and it's pretty clean. Now I did wheel hoe this a little bit to get rid of some pesky pigweed I had. I came in here earlier, hand pulled a few weeds, but it was overall pretty dang clean. Now if we take a closer look here, we can see we still have a good bit of organic material on top of that soil there. Some of that cover crop that was mowed down or cut down by the chickens. Got a few shavings in here from their bedding. I don't think that's really going to hurt anything, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. So when we built the chicken tractor and started doing this whole cover crop grazing thing in our plots around this time last year, I knew I was going to have to do things a little differently in these no-till plots and our traditional plots. In our traditional plots, you know, we let the chickens work through that cover crop a couple times, and if there's any residue left or anything that needs to be terminated, we just run through there with a tiller once or twice, boom, it's ready to plant. I knew in these no-till plots it was going to be a little different game plan because obviously we're not going to run the tiller through there to help terminate the cover crop. And so what I was thinking initially that I was going to have to do is, okay, run the chickens through there a couple times depending on the cover crop. Some are more difficult to terminate than others. But after the chickens run through there, I thought, okay, then I'm going to have to tarp this thing for, you know, say 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks to really kind of finish off that cover crop. But in this case, we didn't have to use a tarp at all. Yes, we did have to help the chickens out a little bit with the mower, and mowing down that sorghum sudan grass made it easier to pull the chicken tractor through the plot. But with the mower and with the chickens going through here twice, we got it really clean, as you see here. No need to tarp it. And with that system, we can pretty much turn over these no-till plots in just, you know, as quick a time as we can our traditional plots where we would go in there with a tiller. So before we plant the pumpkins, let's talk a little bit kind of about the history of this particular no-till plot. So this has been a no-till plot for I think 2 years now. So 2 years ago we came here and dumped about 3 or 4 tons of gin trash compost on the plot. You know, nice thick layer compost there. We grew some brassicas in it that fall, some cabbage, broccoli, stuff like that. Didn't do that great the first year. We had a late planting of spinach that actually did pretty good, but initially this plot, when we converted it to no-till, was not that great. The following spring we planted some pumpkins and winter squash in here. Those did really well. Last year we came in here, dumped another, you know, 3 or 4 tons of compost on this plot, and so we have a lot of compost in there at this point. I don't think I need to add any compost to it this year, and I'm not planning on doing so. I think there's been enough compost added, and now, you know, adding the cover crop residue in there, the chickens fertilizing the plots, I'm really happy with how this soil is looking. So I'm not going to add any compost this year. We'll see if next year maybe we need to add some, but I think we're pretty good right now. So there's been a couple things I've kind of had to learn the hard way the last couple years when it comes to planting either transplants or direct seeding in this type of no-till plot where we have that thick compost layer on top. So this compost is very well broken down. It's very fine. That means that this plot drains really well. We don't ever get standing water in this plot. That also means that the top layer tends to stay kind of dry. Now there's a good water reservoir once you go down a few inches, but in the very top it stays pretty dry and it's hard to get it to hold water in the top. As a result, when we're transplanting stuff, we really have to pump the water to it until those roots can kind of get down to that water reservoir. If we're direct seeding something, we really have to pour the overhead sprinkler to it to keep that moisture in the top of the soil so that those seeds can germinate. So one thing I've kind of learned to do to help with that, top layer of soil being so dry is to come in here and really soak this plot down a day or the night before we're going to plant in it. So it's been a couple weeks since we had a really good rain around here, so last night I let that overhead sprinkler run all night long on this plot here. You can't really tell because, like I said, that top layer there drains well and stays so dry, but it did help kind of replenish the water supply underneath that first 1 or 2 inches of compost there. So this up top here is pretty dry, but if we scratch down here a little bit, then we've got some really nice moisture down in there. So one thing I have also learned to do when I'm planting transplants in particular is to make a furrow, put our drip tape in the furrow, and then not close the furrow, just leave the furrow open, put the transplant down into that moist soil there, as opposed to just putting it in the top right here where it stays pretty dry. So if we can put our plug down in here, it's going to have plenty of moisture to access, whereas if we put it up here, we're just going to have to water it all the time until it gets going. So letting that plug get down to where that moisture is really helps with transplant survival. Now one more thing I want to talk about real quick, like before we plant, we've had a lot of people asking about this in the comments in recent videos, is about the chicken manure here. A lot of people have been asking, well, that's not going to be too hot, moving the chickens right off there, having that fresh manure on there, that's not going to be too hot to plant into. So I've been doing some testing with this kind of as we've been using this chicken tractor grazing system with our corn and other stuff so far this year, and having the chickens on a plot, letting them do 2 rounds on the plot, moving the chicken tractor every day, doesn't seem to affect direct seeding. Our corn came up just fine, and in other plots where we've added transplants, doesn't seem to affect those as well. Now there is such thing as having too much chicken manure in a plot or in soil and it being too hot, and if you've ever used much chicken manure, you probably know that. So several years ago in a plot right there, I added too much before my fall planting and I didn't get it mixed in good, and what happened was it kind of ended up forming this kind of anoxic layer on top of the soil, and the plants just looked really pitiful until I could get that soil to start breathing again. So you can certainly have too much chicken manure, but from my experiences, 2 rotations with the chicken tractor, with those 6 chickens, moving them every day is not too much. Maybe 3 or 4 rotations might be too much, I don't know, but we're just going to stick with the 2 rotation plan, or the 2 trips around the plot plan, because that seems to be working pretty well for us so far. Alright, so now for some planting fun. As you can see here, I've already got the main line laid out for my drip system, already got my filter and my pressure regulator set up there. That's where we'll be hooking our water hose into. So already got that out there so it can feed those drip lines we'll put down in a minute. Now earlier today I was looking around in my barn and I realized I had ran out of main line tube, and I thought I had some more somewhere, couldn't find it. Turns out I had ran out. Now I usually order that online from Drip Depot, get it in big 250 foot or 500 foot rolls, but obviously I can't get that shipped here today that fast, so I had to run up to Home Depot and I got this little short 50-foot roll, which is enough for these plots here. I think this was $10 or so. Just went and grabbed this to do this plot right here, which is only 35 foot wide. As I was under the barn getting my hole punch and some of my other drip supplies together, I noticed I had this one mainline manifold that hadn't been disconnected, still had all the fittings on it that I had laid down at some point in the last couple months. So I said, let me look at the hole spacing on this one. I don't know which plot this came off of. Well, got to look at the hole spacing. There was only 5 holes in the whole kind of run of main line there. I said, oh, this must be the one from our spring pumpkin plot. This will work perfect for this plot. I won't have to lay down any main line, won't have to do anything. So everything was already connected, everything was already hooked up. I just had to drag this main line out here, so our holes are already punched. All we got to do is plug the drip tape into there. So all I had to do was just lay this out along the width of this plot, find where those holes are and make a mark. So I'll know where to put my furrow. So you can see there, I made a little trench there. It tells me a hole's there. We got another one right there, and then 3 more down that way. So that's one of the great things about having your plot sizes somewhat standardized. If you have multiple garden plots, having them all the same size. Now, not all of ours are the same size, but these 6 out here are, and it really comes in handy being able to reuse those mainline manifolds. We don't have to break them down, put them back together. We don't have to use more mainline. Turns out I didn't even have to go buy any more mainline, but I've got some extra now if I need it. And look who it is. It's our friendly neighborhood duck brigade. You guys waiting on another watermelon? All right, come on. Come on, I'll get you one. Okay, I hear you. I hear you. I ain't got but a few left, okay? We're gonna have to start rationing them a little bit. Maybe not one every day, maybe one every 2 days. Cause y'all gonna eat all the watermelons and then y'all gonna be upset. And y'all were hungry today, weren't you? Maybe you should take your time and enjoy it a little more. Not eat it so fast, might hurt your belly. Okay, so where were we? So not only can we reuse our main line set up there, we can also reuse our tape here. So all these tape lines, it looks kind of like a jumbled mess, but it's not too bad. Anyway, all these tape lines here are all the same length. They come off other plots in this dream garden here, which are all the same size. They have all the connectors on them already, so all we got to do is make a furrow and plug them in, make sure they're not leaking anywhere. Okay, so we got our furrows made, and as you might have noticed on the footage there, I went through these twice with the wheel hoe just to get them nice and clean and deep so we can get down to that moisture reservoir. I've got a couple minor issues here I've got to resolve before we can turn this water on and start planting. So as you can see there, that tape is running out past the end of the plot. So I think what happened was, as I got my mainline manifold pushed up a little further than it normally is, and so these lines ended up being too long. That's not a problem. We'll cut those there, trim them up, put our row in back on, and it should be just fine. And then on this particular drip line right here, we look closely, we've got us a nice good sized hole there in that one, which would cause a big problem. So we need to patch that up and repair that. It's going to shorten up this drip line a little bit, but that's okay because we got a little bit to work with there. So what I need to do right here is cut out this little bad section here and replace it with this coupling, and everything should work fine. So there's a hard emitter right there. So I'm going to cut on this side of that, and then looks like it's good to here. So I'm going to cut that right there, and then going to install that there, put this on this end here, and there we go, patched up. Well, I hooked it up and turned the water on because I thought I was good. Turns out got a good little leak right there, so need to patch that as well, but everything else looks pretty good. All right, so we got that one patched and now we're good to go. And that's just part of the process. If you're reusing drip tape, that's gonna happen. You're gonna have to put a coupling in there every now and then, patch a leak or two. If you just throw your tape away and always use new tape, probably don't ever have to do that. But if you reuse it, Might have to patch a leak every now and then. All right, so we got our polar bear pumpkin transplants right here. This variety makes a nice big white pumpkin. Did pretty well for us last fall. These plants started looking a little rough the last couple days in the greenhouse. I even picked a couple leaf-footed bugs off of them, so probably gonna have to spray them pretty quick, but hopefully they'll enjoy getting put in the ground today. The root balls, not really root wrap by any means, still looks pretty good, but maybe they're just ready to go in the ground. Got some NatureSafe 855 here we're gonna put in the ground beside each plant as well. So I've got my transplants laid out beside every other emitter along this tape to give me a 2-foot plant spacing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, put me a handful of this 855 down in there, and then make me a nice little hole there, almost getting down there to that native soil, and then cover it up like that a little bit. That should be a lot better as far as keeping moisture around that root ball as opposed to if we were to plant it way up here. All right. That was about like work there. About wore me out planting those 5 rows of pumpkins there, as hot as it is out here today. But we got them in, and if all those transplants survive, that's going to be a heap of polar bear pumpkins. Now, I am expecting to lose a few of those transplants just based on my other pumpkin plantings that are going on right now, but that's why we put them 2 feet apart. If we lose a few, not a big deal. And I think planting them in this trench like this, down there where that water reservoir is going to help these survive a lot better, keep them nice and happy until they get some roots into that soil there. And I do have a few transplants left over here, so I'll keep these in the greenhouse. I can replace a few if I lose some, and I might use some of these over there where I planted those cargo pumpkins. I've lost quite a few of those transplants. Might plug in some of these over there. So with those polar bear transplants in the ground, that wraps up our fall pumpkin transplanting. Seems like it's taking forever to get all these in the ground, get the plots prepared, but I'm glad to be done with it. Now we're just gonna have to baby them a little bit until they get up and going. Hopefully it all pans out. Hopefully our work will pay off and we'll have a lot of pretty pumpkins come October. All right, so now it's time to see if we can find us a little snack here. Now I was planning on telling you guys all about our muscadine vine here on this video, but I think I'm gonna save that for another video. I'm pretty gassed, so I'm get us a snack here, then we're gonna go inside and cool off, but I will show you what a few of them look like. Now these aren't perfectly ripe yet. Some of them are getting mighty close to these big purple ones here. They start out looking kind of like that, and then they'll turn dark purple like that, and then we'll have to wait on them to get a little bit soft before they're perfectly ripe deep, but they're getting close enough to start sampling. So we've got about 4 or 5 different varieties planted along here. I don't know the names of any of them, but I'll show you all those varieties on another video. With these big purple ones here, you kind of want to wait until that top there, the whole thing turns dark purple. That's when it's perfectly ripe. So this one ain't quite there, but it's close enough to eat. Now, if you're from the south, you know all about muscadines because they grow wild here. You can go in the woods in most places and find wild vines. Some of the wild ones won't be as big as these, but they're usually pretty tasty, kind of like blackberries. You know, during the spring, the blackberries grow wild everywhere in the woods around here too. So these do have seeds in them. You don't want to eat the seeds. I had a great uncle one time eat too many of these, swallowed too many seeds, and he had to go to the hospital and get his stomach pumped. So you don't want to eat the seeds, and there ain't really a pretty way to eat these. Now some people will put the whole thing in their mouth and then spit out the hole in the seeds. I kind of just pop it like that, and then you just kind of spit out the seeds, eat the rest of it, and man, you can stand out here all day and make yourself sick off these things. Now, much like watermelon, what's really good is pick you a bowl full of them, pick you a Ziploc bag full of them, put them in the refrigerator for a night or a day or so, and get them nice and cold, and man, they are really, really good that way. Now, I've never made jelly off these. I guess I need to. We always just eat them raw like this and, you know, give them away to friends and stuff. But I think this year I may try to make some jelly out of them. So I'm gonna eat a few more until I feel completely nourished, and I'm gonna go inside, cool off for a little bit. Hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Hope you enjoyed kind of the discussion and talking about the evolution of our no-till plot, getting those pumpkins planted. And if you know about muscadines, if you have muscadines growing on your property, let me know in the comments below. If you've never even heard or never even eaten a muscadine, let me know about that as well. I'd be interested to see, you know, kind of what percentage of people are familiar with these and what percentage of people have never even tried one. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to check out our affiliate links below. A lot of great companies that we use in our gardens here at Lazy Dog Farm. Even got some coupon codes for some of those companies so you can take advantage of those discounts. Don't forget to go check out our website, lazydogfarm.com, where we've got hats, shirts, recipes, garden blog, recommended products, all kind of good stuff over there. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification button, like and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh, farewell, by the beauty of your life.